You're listening to the Forest School podcast with Lewis Ames and Gemma Southerden.
You feel a little bit jittery.
Jittery? It's probably because I am sleep deprived, because I've got a new puppy and it's like having a baby, and so, you know, I wake up at 3 o'clock, bleary-eyed, cleaning up poo, you know, 3 in the morning. So
And you thought those days were behind you?
I just thought it was time. I thought my life
You thought,
was
you know
so
what? I haven't
calm.
touched actual poo in a long time.
And yeah, what are you drinking there?
What am I drinking?
It looks
I'm
like gin and
drinking-
tonic in a can.
Maybe,
It's quite an
that's-
interesting choice before a parent and toddler session on a Friday morning.
Whatever gets you through.
What actually is it?
What actually is it is the cheapest caffeine drink I could find on Amazon in bulk. It is horrendous.
Is it? But
Yeah.
it looks like very classy. It's got like oranges and lemons on
I'll
the
take
front.
that,
Like
though.
it's really
Which is
elegant.
which is more scummy? Drinking a tin of gin and tonic before work, or drinking a tin of like. I think the thing is that caffeine drinks, all the branding around them is like power cool. You're the best. You're
But that isn't power cool. That is like
It's called Warrior. It's got
Oh.
a picture of a helmet on it.
oh, but on the back it's like lovely, classy oranges and lemons. Like it's a little punch cocktail.
Maybe that's to do it. Do you know what I saw for the first time and I didn't realise? So before I go to the gym, I have pre-workout, which is caffeine powder and
Yep.
stuff that makes blood vessels go. No, this is interesting. I think it's interesting.
To you.
I saw for the first time on Amazon, Gemma's put a hat over her head, but you're all listening to me, which is lovely. Caffeine powder specifically for gamers.
What?
It's called like see, she's coming back out the hat now. Concentration boost, faster keyboard skills. It was like
Oh my God.
down some caffeine and then do competitive gaming.
That's
it was really interesting.
I find that I find it twisted, especially because I'm watching the program Industry at the moment, which is all about like
still
the
haven't watched
world
it
of
yet.
corporate banking. I mean, it is just like it's insane. It's an insane program. It's the filthiest thing I've ever watched on television. But also, they're all just like doing every drug under the sun, including drugs to like keep them like mentally focused.
Yeah.
La, 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 la. So yeah. Anyway,
That's on the
on the subject of being super professional
and rules and
rules,
things like that.
Yes.
We thought we would vaguely talk about. That's how I'm going to start renaming the podcasts. Vaguely talking about.
Gemma, vaguely.
Sometimes
kind
talk
of
about.
talk about blah.
Kind of talk about, and we can't work out what the heading is for this.
No,
But it's
I
kind
reckon we'll find out once we get to the end of it. Basically, would you say it's brought on because we had Ofsted last Friday? We
Yes.
had Ofsted. It happened, and it was completely fine. I wouldn't say it was like easy. It was like, you know, okay, get psyched, get prepared, get ready.
You couldn't have done nothing.
You couldn't have done nothing.
And gone through.
And we're on the childcare register, not the early years register anymore. So it makes it a different kind of inspection.
For people outside the UK, Ofsted
Yes.
is the like education inspecting body. Checks that anyone.
And childcare.
Yeah, checks that anyone that's operating in childcare is meeting certain requirements, is keeping children safe, and they also do a lot of stuff around prevent and stopping. Making
Yeah,
sure
all
you're on
kind of-
top of safeguarding and
Yes.
things like that.
Yes. And so if you're on the childcare register, which you might be for if you are looking after children who are older than early years, or you're running holiday clubs, you're doing stuff that is, you know, forest schooly stuff, maybe independently, not in a school, then you need to be Ofsted registered. It's one of those questions that comes up a lot on the discussion groups.
As you were saying it, I was like, I can't believe you're going into details.
I'm not
I
gonna
would
go
just
into
say to
detail.
everyone, like, phone Ofsted.
Yes, you need to. That's
Just
exactly
phone
what I was.
Ofsted.
That's exactly where I was
Yeah.
going with it, because so many people ask that question, like, I'm doing blah 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 for X
I'm doing
amount of
X
hours.
under conditions Y.
Yeah,
with
parents
the children
are
of-
there, they're not there, the age is blah. So, and lots of people reply and go, well, I'm doing this and I'm not, and I'm doing this and I am. It's just like, just ring them. The only thing is that that has always been my advice, but at some point they're so busy that you can't speak to a human being. They do those like choose the options, and then it's like, we're busy now, goodbye, and then and you're like, I've just been selecting options for what feels like forever. But no, you can phone them and you can ask them all of these questions and get registered, folks.
Yeah.
Do it.
But
Tick the
so we
box.
had it, and we thought we'd talk about kind of in general the things that you might. So when you think about forest school, people think of the lovely sitting under a tree and the sketching with charcoal and the big wide games and all those things. And we kind of wanted to talk about the professional standards, the requirements that come along. It's that backgroundy stuff of going, you know, how do you manage all of that, and how much of that is an unseen workload,
and the emotions around it, maybe, because, like, kind of speaking personally, I've got like a weird, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but a kind of split thing in my brain where I, on the one hand, I'm like, I need to find out all the rules, and like, but that might be breaking a rule, I must find out the rules, and I must adhere to the rules, and I really like stress about it. And like Ofsted is one example. So when I was teaching in just mainstream school, I think through my line managers and senior management and the way that schools were run when I was there, just the fear of Ofsted was like, I imagine people were afraid of hell, like when people were very, very, you know, religious, and that was like the just genuine culture of the world. It had been like overblown by my managers in terms of like, well, you know, if Ofsted were watching that, they'd probably say blah blah blah, well, it's all right that you're teaching that way right now because I know blah blah blah, but you'll need to evidence progress in a different way for Ofsted, and all this kind of shizmizzle. And in 9 years of teaching, I always missed Ofsted. I was always either pregnant on maternity leave, or like I'd gone travelling, whatever. So
fucked off.
Just fucked off. And 1 year my head persuaded them not to come, which was so crafty. Like, I don't know how she did it. She just like spent hours on the phone going, yeah, but you inspected us, like, you know, went into the detail of like, but how many single gender schools in our local area have been inspected in the last 4 years, blah blah blah, we've been picked out of the hat too soon, give us another year. Managed to defer them, which is very crafty. But every time that happened, like, I think if I'd had Ofsted early on in my career, I would be less terrified of them. But anyway, so that's my kind of personal thing. So I'm terrified of them, and I have this really like stickler for the rules thing at the same time as going, I just hate this. I really hate that I'm scared of it. I hate that it exists, even though I know that it needs to exist and I need to follow the rules.
Yeah, I think one of the difficult things about the Ofsted situation is that they and this came up in our in our inspection conversation chat with the person. And they're saying that Ofsted is the body that enforces the directions of the Department of Education. They decide. I'm right in saying this, aren't I?
I don't know if you are right in saying that, because in our inspection they said, well, that's not an Ofsted matter, that's a...
Well, I was thinking
at the
end they were saying that the Department of... So they were saying we had a conversation about... I can't remember what it was. It was like how many children you could have, or...
Yeah.
Days you can open. And they said, oh, we were having a conversation about this, but it's not actually us at Ofsted that make that decision. It's an outside authority. Education. Yes, that's where I was going. So, anyway. So
the Department for Education has got more hold over decisions than Ofsted. Yeah, I know. We were talking about, because this is a thing that I've said a billion times till I've bored myself, that the stuff listed in Ofsted is in no way specific to Forest School. And so we were talking, like, our inspector was saying, so do you know how many children you're allowed, you know, talk about ratios, and we were like, yeah, blah blah blah, but we never have that many because it's Forest School, you know, you never have as many children as we are legally allowed to have. And she was like, yeah, I know, like, can you imagine? And we were like, no, we can't imagine. And I was saying to her that I think that there should be separate Ofsted requirements for Forest Schools. So in some ways there are things that are just not relevant, like how ventilated is your space and how much outdoor space you've got and all that kind of thing. So some things are like, well, we shouldn't be held to that, but in other ways it should be more stringent and should be more about considering ratios. But then, having said that, it is actually, we are all sensible adults. We can, you know, manage that risk for ourselves. Well, we don't need Ofsted saying, oh, if you're doing Forest School, you're only allowed 15 kids. Like, that's the job of the FSA, if there needs to be guidance put in place in terms of effective, good Forest School. But that is part of your own professional judgment and risk assessment. I
think that is, like, nail on the head why these things are difficult, in that for the majority of people who do Forest School, they are in their own... God, the word bubble's just been ruined this year, right? I'm going to use the word bubble, but I don't mean like they're touching people. I mean bubble as in metaphorical bubble. So you and I are 99% of the time completely autonomous in what we want to do, what we want to implement, the ethos that we want to put in, the activities that we want to run. And lots of Forest School people are similarly, you know, doing Forest School, I think, encourages you to be like, I risk assess things on my own. I'm confident in my own abilities. I'm confident in how my behaviour management is working. Blah blah blah. So any outside authority makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up and bristle and like, how dare you question my things?
Yeah.
I'm in my own little castle and you may not touch me. Not that anything we do would be seen by the outside authority, like Ofsted and safeguarding, all those very important, and the FSA and all those very important bodies. They have a role to play, but it's such a rarity to be. And similarly, schools. People who have been teaching a very long time have told me that, like, I've talked to some people who can remember when there wasn't a curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
It was like,
since 1980 something that there's been a curriculum.
I mean, to me, that's...
I know.
Eons ago.
But yes, it's like, and this is their... So in my panicky, like, preparing for Ofsted, is there anything that they're going to ask us or that I haven't, like, read recently that I need to, like, swat up on?
Yeah.
And so... had me trawling the Forest School support group in case anybody had like asked this question before or wrote this down and stuff. And one of the issues that came up in my brain, not that Ofsted raised, and also it's worth saying that every Ofsted inspector is different. And I just say we didn't get asked that, doesn't mean that Ofsted don't ask that, because there's been millions of stories on like someone recently was not inspected but had a pre-reg visit as a childminder, and the Ofsted inspector told them that they would not be allowed to be outside with children as a lone worker.
Really?
They would, Ofsted would not condone that, and that childminders are not allowed to take children to the woods. And like loads of childminders like replied going,
yeah, I definitely
are they high? Like, what the heck? Anyway, so one of the things that came up was like, like daily checks. Like, do I need a written record of like, I have checked the whole forest and I've checked
every stick on the floor. The leaves are slippery with 40% moisture.
Yes, and so I was just like, I think where you can search in a group.
Yeah.
If you don't know you can search in a Facebook group, like,
don't worry about it.
You should search in a Facebook group, rather than asking questions for 50 minutes time. So I did daily checks, and there was such an interesting like debate. It's about a year old, and some people going like, I have to fill in this box because I work on like Forestry Commission land or Woodland Trust land or whatever, and so they want to know the daily temperatures, high and low, all of this, like the amount of detail, and they need me to sign it off and blah blah blah, or my employer needs me to do this. And then other people going, well, I don't have to do that, but I just choose to on my like daily plan where I've written down all the stuff we're going to do. Then I have a tick box thing and I check everything, blah. And then other people, I won't name names, going, can we just stop all of this? Can we just stop like thinking that we have to write everything down and sign it in case we get sued? Like, we're all professionals, we've had our training, this should be a given, and some people going, oh, I work in a indoor environment and we have to like check the tables or something on a daily basis. And it's like finding that sweet spot in between like meeting the requirements and making sure that things are safe. Of course, that is the job of a forest school leader, and doing all of those things that keep children and learners happy and safe, and then meeting like the requirements of the powers and the overseeing whoever that might be for you, but like keeping your practice like authentic and trusting yourself and your own judgment, and that is a tricky thing to navigate. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about surely that is, in my mind at least, that is the point of having a qualification. Because if you didn't have a qualification, then I can understand saying, okay, you've got no training in this, or you've got no evidence of training in this, so to cover ourselves we need to list everything, we need to make sure that it's done whatever. I feel like part of the point of doing your level 3 or doing whatever qualification you're going to do in any job is to go that you don't have to show, that's the shortcut that says I'm not going to show all my work anymore. This piece of paper, this qualification, this certificate says I work to a certain standard, I have a certain set of skills, I don't need to evidence everything anymore. And it's interesting, I think, where a level 3 sits, because in some ways a level 3 in forest school is like, cool, you're qualified, you can it's the thing of like, so here's the dichotomy is the level 3 is publicised and set up as once you've got a level 3, you can set up your own forest school. You can do all of the practice that involves. And I think what that is that's passing your driving test.
Find out about CPD courses at childrenoftheforest.com. Check out the podcast links for more details.
Then you learn to drive afterwards. Because I think there's lots of things. So the level 3 part of the qualification is writing a handbook, writing your a safeguarding policy for your setting, for your fake real organisation. This is our safeguarding policy. Now, that is not the same as working out how to book yourself on a county registered safeguarding course. That is not the same as maintaining safeguarding certificates and following that up with, the Lado and the MASH,
when to contact Ofsted, and
all of that stuff. Is when you've done your level 3, you have got almost the keys to that thing that you then have to go and do. Or okay, you've got your level 3 in forest school. Are you then, with that information, ready to pass Ofsted? Probably not.
No.
There's so many other bits that go behind it that do need all that work, and all those. They're checks. They keep it. The argument of well, I guess some of it is this keeping children safe, or is this meeting a government's agenda? So we had some interesting experiences being on the childcare register like we are now. Our curriculum isn't assessed or looked at in any way. Our safeguarding is, our health and safety is, our record keeping, all that stuff. But what we deliver isn't looked at. When we were doing early years stuff, that is very much okay, all children in the country, in the UK, must be doing certain things. And that, for me, was where it got into some tricky, okay, how much of this is current government initiatives and how much
trends and fashions I know. And I keep coming back to that thing of, if forest school was recognised more widely by the powers that be, I think it is recognised by the general public, by parents, by people who work with young people pretty well now. But if it was recognised as significantly important practice by the powers that be, which it should be, then a lot of these issues wouldn't exist. These kind of weird, well, I think so, because I think so that thing you were talking about, doing your level 3, and then there's still loads more you have to do. Obviously, that's really clear to everybody in terms of your practice and what's going to work well with your groups and who are you as a leader or not, kind of thing. But in terms of you also need to go out and find out what regulations apply to you and how to meet those standards. It's going to vary so differently in terms of your insurer, the land you're working on, who you're working with, if you're working on a school site or if you're working independently, and all of those variables. And I kind of feel if there was more recognition from the powers that be, some of those things some of those problems. So, for example, you do your level 3 and you're okay, I know what type of leader I want to be, I know how I want to run my sessions, and then you're working for an employer and they go, yep, here's your insurance policy, we're already insured, and the insurance policy goes into so much detail about you must wear a glove when you're using tools. And it's yeah, but I've decided personally in my own practice that I don't want to do that, but now my insurer is saying XYZ, and I wonder whether if there was more recognition from on high in terms of forest school is a thing, the level 3 is a recognised qualification, a bit if you do your teaching qualification, that's just generally accepted everywhere, isn't it? That's you can get a job in any school and you're trusted to, obviously meet the requirements of the school and your managers, but you're generally trusted to be able to do that and to teach. So, but that's not the same with the forest school level 3 person, that you are often torn in and pulled in different directions because there are so many variables involved. Do you see I'm trying to go with that?
I do. I was wondering whether, I think if I was listening and also thinking, well, what would, how would I fix this? What would the recognition be? And I wonder if it would be closer to doing a PGCE where half of the course content is what a level 3 is now, and the other half is is the teaching, the requirements, the safeguarding, the health and safety stuff, because you don't cover all your health and safety in the level 3. It's silly to say that you do. But I think what happens to lots of people is they become forest school trained, and then they become niche experts. So it's like, I've done my level 3, and I did my level 3 because the nursery that I work in paid for me to do it.
Yeah.
And so then I ran the level 3, I ran my forest school courses in a nursery, and then I set up my own nursery, and then I did the nursery, and I, passed Ofsted through the nursery, blah, blah, blah. If you ask that person about what would the requirements be, I want to take a group of 10-year-olds out on a holiday club, they're not in the same position, in the way that, like, so when I did my PGCE was all of primary, so it's from a bit of early years up to, what are they, 11, 12, some of them. And the qualification meant you can teach appropriately in any of that age range. But the forest school thing, it doesn't give you that. It kind of goes like, well, you can teach anything from, you can run courses now for 6-month-old babies, that's forest school. You can run it for adults with learning disabilities, adults who are doing, who just want to do some stuff. That age range is massive. And to think that you have got the skills that's why there's so much like mental load behind it all to go, right, I want to do this. And lots of people, I imagine, are pulling between, and we are to an extent, pulling between that, like, what would you do in an ideal dream world? What do you think is best for your learners? And what are the requirements being placed on you? And I think that is something that is underrepresented in the advertising for, like, you can run a forest school business. So I think the FSA, okay, let's declare the conflict of interest. Obviously I've got conflict of interest here, but the FSA's just put out this leaflet about, it's like 10-15 pages, how to set up a forest school. And I really liked that there were some pages that were like, do you really want to do this? Are you prepared to get this insurance sorted? Are you prepared for whatever else? So it's like, when you think about, I mean, going right back to the beginning, you think, oh, I want to run forest school, I want to run a holiday club. Cool. I'm imagining now the craft activities and where will we sit and eat our lunch and where will we do whatever. What you're probably not imagining is, hey, have you thought about what you're going to do if someone comes to you and discloses something about FGM? Have you thought about what you're going to do if you meet a parent and you're pretty sure that child that's come to your session is not going home to a safe thing? That's part of running a forest school.
Yeah.
And it's a really important part of running a forest school that I think is kind of like, it's almost like underappreciated. I'm not...
But it's one of those things that is, until, or like I was thinking about, reporting of accidents and knowing when to contact RIDDOR and the health and safety executive and all of those kind of other things, that on a kind of minute-to-minute, day-to-day basis, these things don't happen.
Yeah.
So, and it's such an engrossing job. Like if it's all going great, you are in flow as much as the kids are a lot of the time. So it then is like a real jolt. It's like kind of someone grabbing the scruff of your neck and like jolting you back into like the real
adulthood.
World. Yeah. And you suddenly, and it's someone might say something, you might read something online, or you might realise that like one of your qualifications is up for renewal or something. I'm talking again from personal experience, that you're just like in this like la 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 world.
I'm in the woods, I love trees.
Oh my god, I've just had this moment.
I'm making mulled apple juice
with this kid, and they're looking at lichen under a jeweler's loop, and they're like, oh my god, there's microscopic creatures under there. It's so amazing. And then you're suddenly like, holy fuck, shit, what? And then usually it's always fine. Like it's always fine. But it's just that kind of, because it's such a shift, it like physically hurts me that I have to go, oh shit. It's a bit like the tendrils of attention thing, when someone's engrossed in something and then you rip them out, but over like a longer period of time. So I'm like just generally engrossed in like the world of doing our job.
Yeah.
And then the tendrils get ripped out and it's like, no, you have to make sure that
Yeah.
and that really hurts. But it's something that you have to go with, and it's a bit like we've had moments, haven't we, in running the business, like weirdly last year was quite like, whoa, there were kind of some big business stuff that kind of happened.
It was the choppy waters.
Yeah, and it just made us kind of go, nothing like, dodgy, it's just, things that were, oh, this is like an adult experience that I have to deal with. And it is like painful and is part of running any business, I imagine. But you grow from it, and it's like.
Well, we kind of said that, didn't we, in the inspection after the inspection with Ofsted, we, hung up the phone and went, crikey, we've actually been through firsthand in 5 years. Quite a lot, they were kind of, what would you do if this happened? You're like, well, actually, it has happened, and this and this, and none of it's our fault. None of it is like we're negligent, and so, loads of them have broken their legs. Fucking hell, yeah. Oh, falling out of a tree every day.
And just to pat ourselves on the back, like she did say, I can tell that you guys used to be on the earlier years register. Like you're not like over prepared, but you like know your stuff, and it's really. And so we had obviously you don't go into detail, disclose names or anything, but we had story. When she, like you say, she said, what would you do about blood blah? And we go, actually, when a child did bloody blah.
It was about inclusion, wasn't it? It was like, what would you do if somebody came with this? And we were like, well, we would meet it in this way, and this way, and this way.
Behaviour. It was about behaviour as well, wasn't it? And we put this in place for them, this in place for them, and this is what happened, this was the outcome. And she was like, whoa, I mean, that's basically said, that's amazing. Yeah. She wasn't allowed to say that's amazing.
Yeah, we're in charge of Ofsted now, actually, guys. Amazing. I've held it back till now.
But that was really good, wasn't it? And that was good to sort of have it reflected back at you, because a lot of the time, that's why so many people ask questions on the support group. It's like you're sort of floundering in the dark, like you're kind of going, oh God,
and
what should I be doing?
And again, you and I have got each other.
Yeah.
We've got each other to annoy and pester at all hours with questions.
Yeah, exactly. Oh shit! It's mostly me, isn't it? Spamming, like sometimes.
Share our
and and the whole COVID thing, as everybody has been in the same boat in terms of like, there's the powers that be and the bloody rules and regulations. And I was just like addicted to it at one time, just kind of going, and the reason I was addicted to it was because the documents kept changing so frequently. Without an update, like the government wouldn't go, sorry, can you look at clause 15 of page 4 again, because we've changed the wording of it now and the number is slightly changed. So they wouldn't announce they changed it, so you just had to be on it and read it all the time.
If I circle back a bit to what this fear of Ofsted, and I think that is partly where the fear comes, is because Ofsted is an enforcing body, but they're not necessarily in charge of what's going on. You and I have said before that we think there should be some sort of government body that reviews research and shares that research with the education sector and kind of goes, right, these studies are coming out and they're proving that this is kind of really good practice, so let's
maybe there is,
but then there's also lobbying, and there's also people,
think tanky type people.
Anyway,
I'm sure there are.
But what it was making me think was that like it's a moving target, and that's what's scary about it, is what passed you in your inspection last time is not like, okay, we smashed it last time, best practice, so let's keep doing it. It's like, okay, now you got to keep moving. And not moving in terms of like what's new, what's coming out that's interesting, what's best practice. It's like, what are they looking for now? What hoop have I got? Which of these hoops do I have to jump through now? And actually, that can take a lot of, for me personally. So you have the like, I'm gonna say it comes from. Could be wrong. I think it comes from a little bit of like guilt of like, I've got to be meeting the rules. You're very worried about that stuff coming through. For me, the same situation presents as absolute frustration because there are other things I want to do and push forwards. I'm like, I really need to go and like finish putting the steps down that side of the woods. It's a physical job. It's going to take like 2 hours. It's like, well, actually, you need to update the report that goes in this file that goes in the file. I'm like, I cannot.
Whereas I'm just like overwhelmed sometimes with the terror of, but if I haven't ticked that box, the whole thing's going to shut down.
But that's what I mean. I know that it's a priority, but I'm frustrated that it's a priority because I want to go like, why don't we do some advertising for this new group? Why don't we want to, I want to push the business in this way. I want to try this new project. It's like, where in the day do we do that?
In the middle of the night.
We just need to stop sleeping.
Yeah. Just
okay.
Problem solved. That's like when I spam you with all the things on Discord, and I'm like, and another thing, and another document. Can you just read these 20 documents before tomorrow, please? Because
no, it's because what I get is, can you read this? Oh, and here's another one. Actually, can you read this one instead? Don't worry about it. These have all been disproved. I'll see you in the morning. And I just go, cool. That was lovely. I'm enjoying that played out.
Yeah.
On its own.
That's my brain. That is basically my brain.
It's there.
Yeah. Enjoy the mental load that I dump in there.
Well, I don't, because I see that you had a mental load. I see your mental load bowel movement, and then I see, and then I go, okay, cool. But then that again, that's another way where having two of us is very useful in terms of, so you have taken on more of the Ofsted stuff because I've taken on more of other bits of the business. If it was just me trying to run this, or just you trying to run this, I feel like it's just so many balls in the air.
Yeah, how do people do it?
Well, that's why I think people end up with smaller businesses where they go, I just run this one group, I just focus on this thing.
Yeah. But that must be the kind of thing where, we've said this so many times, but haven't said it in a while, like buddying up with somebody. And they don't even need to be local to you necessarily, although it might be helpful in terms of like your relationship with the local authority or, you know, regional COVID guidance and all that kind of stuff. But to share, because a lot of people put people's backs up on the online forums about like, can you share this policy of yours? Can you share, this isn't even about risk assessments, it's just like, you know, tell me what you do with Ofsted and blah, blah, blah. And it puts people's backs up. But if you had a more personal relationship with like one or two other practitioners who are in a similar kind of field to you, then gosh, how helpful that would be. Sort of like a buddy system. And in normal times, that would definitely be like where the local FSA groups would help with that, right? And, you know,
applications for Forest School training are now open at childrenoftheforest.com. Check out the podcast links for more details.
Each other's sites and having regular phone calls with each other where you check in, and you know, because then you don't mind sharing your practice if it's with like one other practitioner. But then there was always that chat about, well, you're kind of my competitor if we're local, and I'm sharing, you know, if I'm sharing my. But so, you know, each to their own. But if
what
I
you
was
need,
working by
here's
myself,
the system.
I just don't,
Here's the system: is you have an anonymous question line. So someone goes like, what are the requirements for kindergartens in Devon? And you don't know if they're in like the other side. Devon's massive. It's not internationally, it's not massive, right? But it's quite big. Like, you don't know if they're in Plymouth or they're 5 minutes away. And so you just go like, okay, I could probably answer that. And you're not worried about the competitiveness of it. You just keep going like, okay, I've ploughed it through.
But it's about the relationship though, isn't it? And being able to go, I've got the terror, I've got the mental fears.
Yeah.
And someone go, oh yeah, I had that last week. Don't worry, it's this.
Yeah. And also I think, so one thing that we don't have, that lots of people listening will have, is like school requirements, regulations, doing whatever, on top of Ofsted. You know, they're going like, we're not just going for good anymore, we're going for this, or like, quite often, so, okay, let's do some like, template mapping. So we were saying that we think there should be like different requirements in the Ofsted category for Forest School, and I would absolutely stand by people who say, well, I'm really frustrated because my school has made a blanket decision that they go like, every lesson must have a learning objective, and they include Forest School in that thing, or they go, every lesson must be documented in the exercise books, and you're like, fine, I mean, I don't know what you're doing for PE, but the rest of the school, that probably makes sense, get some consistency, do whatever. And I just feel so much for practitioners that go, look, I just want to keep doing Forest School, I just want to keep doing this thing, how do I... It's that thing, isn't it? You can... Some rules and regulations and awarding bodies we look at and we go, this is very beneficial, this is keeping my practice good, you know, I might let my whatever certificate lapse more than 2 years, so I'm quite glad that keeps it in line, takes that out of my hands, mental load's gone. Sometimes when you're like, okay, but this is just Mr. So-and-so who's the head of this department or the head of this, and he or she or they have decided that that's what we're going to do, and so now I have to do it. How do I jump through this hoop in the most applicable way?
Yeah, there's kind of pros and cons in terms of like being under the wing of a school, that a lot of that kind of mental load might be taken from you because you don't need to be, you know, maybe worried about your insurance so much because that's covered by the school, or
ratios,
you know, and safeguarding
fine.
Training, they're going to arrange that for you. HR are going to know when your certificate expires or what level you need to be, or you've got you know, you've got a safeguarding lead in the school, you don't need to be,
and that is person. Partly why you don't get all of the money.
Yeah,
that's part of, you know, that's part of being an employee, isn't it? Of going, okay, here's some of the income I'm going to earn, please can you you know, take all of this off my hands.
Yeah, but there's also yet another hoop to jump through, as you say, in terms of what they want you to do or not do. Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to think if there are other bodies that we've talked about Ofsted, and Ofsted kind of covers our safeguarding requirements as well. We meet our food hygiene is another one that we do because we serve food as well as it being a thing. That one's quite easy to have ticked through. Do some courses.
Yeah.
Do some online courses.
There's an online course. There's also sometimes you'll find independently run but certified like outdoor specific ones, and they're really good. Definitely recommend going on one.
And I would say, right, so I've said this is the flip side of external awarding bodies, whatever umbrella term we're using here, is sometimes it gives you the ability to say things and not be the bad guy.
Oh yeah. I'd love to let you do that.
I would love to. Do you know what?
We're not. Our
insurance will absolutely,
yeah.
and our insurance lets us do whatever. You just make stuff up. Yeah, actually, you can't come in if you're a knobhead because insurance doesn't cover knobheads. That would be good. But stuff. Really dingy.
It's very dingy. It's very damp. This is like the start of it, isn't it? Although I said that last time. The start of winter. But
if anybody's good at editing, March. Can they cut together all the times Gemma said, this is the start of winter. This is the start of it.
But a kid found a hibernating bumblebee yesterday.
Oh yeah.
So cute.
That was
They
cool.
were like raking some leaves and found
Support the podcast today by becoming a Patreon member
so nice.
at childrenoftheforest.com.
When will they come
Check out the
again?
podcast links for more details.
Oh yeah, in the little spring when you see them all coming out of their holes and then digging another hole for a nest.
Oh, maybe. Okay, that's the thing. If you are in the Facebook group for the podcast,
yes,
and you have anything hibernating on your site, and you can get a sneaky photo or just tell us what's hibernating on your site, that would be amazing. We can get this little collection of like all these hibernating things. That would be lovely.
We had a request from a listener to do a kind of like podcast a bit more about us and our background and blah blah blah.
Oh.
Anyway, I said to them, we decided to say to them, okay, so tell us what questions you have.
That was amazing.
Them,
that was like we were
them.
married and you went like, I said, well, I should make him feel included. We said I wasn't involved.
No, you were involved. You were involved because I sent you the thing and you were like, let's do a Q&A. It was your idea.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm really tired now.
Okay.
I need more coffee. It's not going to happen, is it?
Not in
The
time, no.
group is arriving in 9 minutes.
9 minutes. Jesus. Right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh, we didn't finish that sentence.
They'll
Still recording.
They'll be fine.
You're still recording.
They know what we're going to say.
No, send questions.
Oh, good. I'm glad we carried on.
Send.
Good job.
Wait,
they've got this. What?
It can be any question.
This is ridiculous. I'm going away.
It can be any question, listeners. A good question, a serious question, a silly question. If you have any questions, send
Was this worth carrying on?
send us a question. Okay, bye. Bye. I love you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen.
If you like this podcast and want to support more episodes, you can donate through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Children of the Forest to show your support for the Forest School podcast.